Hello and welcome to On Fire here on Daily Mirror Online. I'm Easwaran Rutnam. The second wave of the coronavirus is taking its toll on Sri Lanka, and Colombo is one of the areas, or if not the area, that is most affected. To discuss the whole situation with me is Colombo Mayor Rosy Senanayake. Mrs. Senanayake, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Easwaran, for inviting me.
So, Mrs. Senanayake, in your opinion, how serious is the situation in Colombo?
I think, Easwaran, this is as serious as it can be. Every one of us should have this mindset, or our mind frame should be where we take this as a serious issue. It is serious. You can't say it is not serious. See, when we do 991 PCR testings a day, and if we have 249 positive cases, it is a serious issue. Whether even if you have 5 positive cases in a city, I look at it as a serious issue. The whole problem right now is where people don't take this seriously. When I say people, I talk about the general public as well. All of us, we all think that, it's not going to happen to us. It is not that serious. It is in your neighbor's garden, not in my garden, not in my house. So you need to look at it as a very serious issue, and it is very serious in my opinion. And the government, together with the CMC, is taking every effort to try and control. And we are in a state where we have actually come to a controlling level, where we don't see an increase, but it's static, but it hasn't also gone down at the same time. And there are areas like in pockets where we are getting positive cases. So the CMC does an X number of testings. Then the private sector also does, privately people do PCR testing. And then there are positive numbers there as well. So I think every one of us should have this mindset to know that COVID-19, it's a pandemic, it's a global pandemic, and it's a very serious issue. And with that seriousness in mind, if we adhere to all the health norms and basically go about with our day-to-day work. When I say day-to-day work, there are people who just walk about unnecessarily. Don't get out of your house if you really don't have to get out of your house. If you can use e-commerce to support you with your daily essentials and whatever, do that. Constantly think that the person that you come in contact with could be a COVID positive patient. Wear your masks, the 1 meter distancing, hand washing, sanitizing. All this is absolutely important. Also, when you're at home, we have all kinds of indigenous remedies that we can take, from drinking kottamali to drinking hot water to steam inhalation. So this is how serious it is to me, because none of us want to get COVID. We don't want our family members, elderly family members, dying of COVID. So let's look at it as a very serious issue.
But do you think, or let's say if I were to tell you that maybe after the first wave, that the authorities maybe just let things go, let people just do what they want to do, and that sort of resulted in us facing what we're facing right now?
See, in the first wave, I think the government handled the situation very well, extremely well. There was a 59 or 56 days curfew and a lockdown, which helped us to open up totally, to go for an election for almost 3 months. We were COVID-free since March. And for some reason, with the Brandix or Binuangoda, cluster, it started, basically spreading all over. And now it's in Colombo. Colombo is in a bit of a serious situation. But I must say the Public Health Department has been able to contain and control it to a certain extent. But it could be only controlled with the support of the people as well. So at that point, yes, I think the government took very clear, good measures initially. Say, for an example, I always give credit to the commander of the army, General Shavendra de Silva, because he foresaw the issue, and he went and he started setting up quarantine centers. They in fact prefabricated quarantine centers. They found places. They gave their, basically locations, the army locations, for us to, basically anyone who came from overseas to be quarantined and quarantined. So things like that, which no other country did. Now, say for an example, if you were tested positive, you would be asked to stay at home and have self quarantine in your home. And only if you're really bad and serious, call 199 and call the authorities to take you in an ambulance, or the paramedics would come and take you. So, but we, even at this point, we do our testing, we do the isolation. We, when we find any positive cases, we basically take them to the quarantine centers in the night till 4, 3 in the morning. Our PHIs and our doctors are on the ball in the morning. They wake up at 5 o'clock, they start testing in the morning. Then the reports come in, the previous day's reports. Then they identify these families, they find the people, they get the buses with the support of the central government and put them into the buses and send them to the relevant quarantine centers. For how long could we do this? I mean, that's a question that we have. And then they, of course, with the support of the army again, we do the contact tracing of the previous day's positive cases, and then get ready for the next days. So it's like a never-ending, a bit of a cycle where our heroes, the public health department, the doctors, the PHIs, and the other relevant authorities, work constantly without a break, without, basically time off. They work very hard. But to come to your question about whether the government let it go, we are all, I really don't want to criticize somebody for the sake of criticizing.
The reason I raise that is because the authorities or the government itself is blaming the public, but shouldn't the government also take some sort of responsibility here?
I think we all need to take responsibility, but the government has to take the major share of the responsibility. So do we. Like the council will also have to take a certain amount of responsibility, because we should have foreseen the second wave, and we should have been ready for it. And in case of a second wave, where are we going to put these people? How soon can we test them? How much testing can we do for a day? Now, for me, I had also requested this. This is like about 2 weeks ago, for a 2 weeks total lockdown, or maximum 3 weeks, and then do maximum number of PCR testing, identify the positive cases. When I say lockdown with a strict lockdown, where people should have no movement unless it's for essential goods and essential services. No one to come in, no one to go out. But I must say the government supported me, where apart from the lockdown areas, in certain police divisions, they put curfew and they went into very strict lockdown where people couldn't come out. And they were, the Air Force had their drones, in operation to identify people who were roaming around and whatever. Only thing is, for me, the testing that we do is not sufficient enough, in my opinion. But I am no medical person. I'm not an authority in that sense. I'm talking to you as a lay person, but as the mayor, as the commanding chief of the municipal commission, and the mayor appointed by the public, because it's my responsibility to make sure that the people of the Colombo municipal limits are safe, secure, and they are provided with the necessary services. And also, this, I look at it as a very humanitarian crisis that we are faced with, because the people that live in the Colombo municipal limits, 60% are in the underserved settlement areas. They are the underserved. They are the low-income groups. And most of them are, live on daily wages, or they have their self-employment schemes and whatever. So all this is gone in the last 3 to 4 weeks. So we need to support them. We need to, basically provide them with their basic needs. So what I said was providing their basic needs and doing a full lockdown with maximum testing. For a day we need to do, because the maximum we've done for a day is 1,500 on certain days. Now, yesterday we did 991. The previous day we did 950 something. The previous day 800. So some days we do 400, because we depend on the central government to give us the PCR packs to do the testing. And then we have to send it to the government labs. And there are times when sometimes, some of those labs are not functional for various reasons. So this is something that the government could have been ready with in case of a second wave, and which we are faced with right now. But other than that, this pandemic is new to everyone in the world. No amount of, preparing yourself also sometimes can help us. So I suppose everybody is learning with trial and error, but that is no excuse, because we could also look at how other countries overcame, whether it's New Zealand, Taiwan, Taipei, or perhaps the Nordic countries, and some of the countries that are, doing extremely well, and the strategies they formulated are some things that we should have looked at and been prepared for. But we were very complacent and content, because in the first wave, we didn't report a single, after like April, there were no deaths, there were no positive cases in Colombo. So, we thought everything was hunky-dory. Only like the expats who were returning back to the country. Straight from the airport, they were taken to quarantine centers, and that's the only place where we found positive cases. So I suppose we were a little too complacent in that sense, and we didn't know what to expect in the second wave. But I think we are managing and coping well at this point of time. But we can still do better.
But your proposal to close Colombo to prevent
Yeah.
people from outside coming in and from those inside going out is not really being implemented, though. Is
No,
there a reason for
they
that?
took note of that. And like I said, in
Certain
certain police
pockets.
divisions, they imposed curfew. And also they were very strict, like I said earlier, in controlling the people's movement, which enables, so that's one of the reasons why we are able to manage it, and it is static. But then here and there are days when, you find pockets from various places, unexpected places,
Right.
that positive cases have been reported. So, like the medical authorities say, we need at least another 2 to 3 weeks to really find out whether we could actually flatten the curve and eradicate it from Colombo, so that we can open up some of these lockdown areas. There's quite a vast number of areas that are still locked down in North Colombo and Central Colombo and parts of Borella. So we need to also open up as fast as possible, so that business can, nothing will come to normal. Nothing is going to be the same ever again. So this is the new norm, where we will have to live with the pandemic, but also be cautious in how we do business in the future.
You mentioned the role played by the military, and I should ask this. I mean, there are concerns being raised that this whole process is being militarized. How do you see that?
I am not. I'm totally detached from the central government's operations. My entire concentration is on the Colombo municipal limits. I must say I have immense support from the military. I must actually mention the present commander of the army, General Shavendra Silva, has supported us. Say, for an example, in the morning we do our PCR testing. We get our positive cases, the reports, by midday, and then we go looking for the first, we isolate them, we repatriate them to the quarantine centers, and to go look for the first trace, the tracing. We do it with the military, the support of the military. So the commander has totally supported us. Right at this point of time, I am distributing 70,000 dry ration packs to 70,000 families, and it's done in pockets. It's done with the control of the PHIs, and the PHIs would tell me, this is the number you can deliver in this place for a day. And that, with the support of the military, I have had conversations with the commander, and sometimes my numbers or my request, we've had conversations like that, and we've had.
So you all are collaborating, both are working together.
Obviously,
Yeah.
we cannot survive without the central government. Like I said, the health ministry has to give us the PCR test. They have to do our testings in their labs, but all the work is done by our public health department. I must actually commend Dr. Vijay Muni, Dr. Dinu Guruge, and that entire team. I have 25 doctors, 65 PHIs in the public health department itself. We have about 600 odd people working. They're all on the ground. They basically are really stretched in the work they do. They do the maximum, and they're overwhelmed with the responsibility, the work that they're doing for the nation. And I must say, they're also exhausted. And so as a result of that, I have basically taken measures to bring back the retired PHIs and any medical person who wants to come back and serve us. We've also, together with the medical faculty, we've spoken to the dean to get some interns, medical students as interns to support us. Also, just passed out medical students who are just want to become doctors to support us in this at this particular period. So these are measures that we've taken as a council to get more human resource, manpower, and if we can get more testing as well. Even if we get more testing kits, we may not have the manpower
Right.
to do that. So
But do you all have the facilities as well, the funding as well?
no, we don't have the funding. The
Okay.
PCR packs have to come from the government.
Okay, but to do the entire testing process, apart from the PCR packs itself,
We need the human
you all
resources as
need the
well.
human
Yeah.
resources as well. Have you attended discussions with the task force, with the presidential task force?
But my commissioner is in the task force. So
Okay.
the municipal commissioner represents us.
So I mean, a lot of people are now talking of, okay, after the second wave, they're even talking of a third wave. They're saying that this
Yeah.
situation is, I mean, you were just saying that, this is probably going to be here for the long run.
Yeah.
We also spoke about, maybe there were some shortcomings after the first wave. Are we now prepared to face if there is something more later on?
I think if you talk to the medical authorities, they might say that they are prepared, but I have my concerns. Those are my personal concerns, whether we have enough number of hospitals in case there's a third wave. Even now, I think we are stretched to the maximum. Whether we have enough ventilators, whether we have lab facilities to do more PCR testing. In order to basically curb or flatten the curve, we need to do PCR testing, identify the positive cases, quarantine. That's like a must. So now, say for an example, the testing we do right now in the municipal limits, people of the first trace or the second trace, the contact traces. So if we do random testing, we don't have the luxury of doing random testing. So if we do at least 100 or 200 random testing, sometimes we might find people which are not, contact traced persons.
Right.
So that way we might be able to identify people faster and send them to quarantine centers or get them to self-quarantine in their homes. But that is also a bit of a tough area in Colombo because people live in either in clusters, in the wattas, or perhaps in those apartment complexes. It's very difficult to control and contain them. They have it's very easy for us to say, okay, stay in your room, self-quarantine is the key, and don't move around. But they live in such small spaces that they don't have separate rooms for each one. They don't have toilet facilities or sanitary facilities. So it's tough. So you need to find space. You need to find those centers. In fact, I have offered my community centers to be operated as quarantine centers. We have 2 clinics which we have offered. We have hospitals which we have offered. Apart from the dry ration that we give, Easwaran, that we are giving right now, we have 27 dispensaries and we've been giving free medication. So far, we have given free medication to 21,000 people. And we also have mobile clinics right now, which we are operating in those lockdown areas. We go to their doorstep and we basically, there are loads of people with diabetes, high blood pressure, and all those illnesses. So our Ayurvedic centers are open. We have 21 Ayurvedic centers. Our dispensaries are open 24 hours. We have a 24-hour line where you can call all our doctors and get your medicine prescribed and medicine delivered to the house. So we've done so many of those services. Apart from that, we have also given poor relief worth of from 1,000 rupees to 2,500 rupees to 13,000 families. Last month, we will be repeating that again in December, poor relief to 13,000 families. We have taken measures to distribute 650,000 masks because we tell people to wear masks, but some of these people can't afford to buy a mask. We tell people to wash their hands. Some families can't afford to buy a piece of soap. Under these circumstances, they have no jobs, they have no income. And even when the government gives them the 5,000, they have to, some of them have to pay their rents, they have to pay their electricity bill, they have to pay their water bills. So in fact, yesterday at the district secretariat, we had a meeting with the government ministers, the district chairman, and the leader of the opposition, all of us. And I made this request. I said, see whether you could waive off, like in the first pandemic, when we had the first lockdown, they gave time for people to pay off the electricity bills and water bills, and they waived off certain things. Whether that kind of concession can be given to these people, because I must say the government has been giving to the low income groups, the vulnerable groups, 5,000 rupees. They have been giving 10,000 rupees worth of dry ration to the lockdown homes of the positive cases. Only the people who were declared positive, those families have got the 10,000, but not the rest who are locked down in the area. And so there is a huge crisis. Yesterday we had this discussion. Now so in fact we said there are 70,000 in the Colombo Divisional Secretariat, and there's 35,000 in Timbrikasai Divisional Secretariat. Families that are identified as low income, very poor, who are actually destitute and needs help. So these discussions have been going on. But I didn't wait for the central government to come in. I thought I'll support the central government. This is when I took measures to, speak with the commissioner and my department heads. We pulled in all the resources that we had from the different departments, because it's the year end, and we spent 210 million to buy the dry ration packs for 70,000 families. I have appealed to the private sector, and some of those corporations and banks and people have been very positive in responding to give another 30,000 families dry ration. Plus, even to make the masks. We thought we give the women in the city to make the masks so that they can have an income as well. And some of the private sector organizations, I don't know whether they would like me to mention their names, have come forward to give the fabric for us to do the masks and things like that. So we have support, and my appeal is asking people to support us to because this is a humanitarian issue, and we're dealing with human lives, and we're dealing with a very deadly pandemic which is affecting every starter of life, which is affecting the government, the municipality, the private sector, the businesses, the economy. So we need to see this flattened totally and get back to normalcy, but we will have to live with COVID. But when we live with COVID, how do we live with COVID? So we need to adhere to the health regulations and norms in everything we do, and take it as a very serious issue. Do not take it lightly.
Has politics, in any way affected your ability to work with the government, since you are from a different political party?
Not really. Not really. I think my approach is totally different in how I work. See, if you take the pandemic itself and the present situation as far as COVID is concerned, we should not look at party politics here. Nobody should be looking at who is doing what, and we should not criticize for the sake of criticizing also, unless it is something constructive that we can contribute towards, supporting the system. This is beyond party politics. This is beyond race, religion, caste, creed, the whole issue. This is a human issue where we are dealing with human lives and their safety, where we are dealing with the future of our future generations, where we are dealing with how does a country move forward with the pandemic, and how do we, whilst controlling the pandemic, how do we get back to, normalcy as far as the economy is concerned, so that, everybody will benefit. Right now, everybody has a fear. Even when I said lockdown for 2 weeks, the business community was very frightened, including my family. I depend on our family business, so that will be locked down as well. But I was selfless at that point. For me, what came first was, how do we control the pandemic first? Give it time. In a short span of time, let's lock down. Let's do maximum PCR testing. Let's identify the positive cases, send them to quarantine centers, quarantine the people, and then, open up gradually. And we would have been able to open up. I think now, I heard that the president also had mentioned at the task force yesterday or day before, try and see the areas where we could open up. Because Colombo is the commercial hub, it's the administrative hub as well. This is a service provider, whether it's the port, entire the country's agriculture comes to Colombo, so we need to get back to, doing business. Of course, living with COVID and also doing business as fast as possible. So how do we do that? We need to get used to living with it. How do we live with COVID? What measures do we have to take? Like I said earlier, every person that comes in front of you, look at that person as a COVID positive case. So you will be scared. You'll have that mindset to be secure. You'll be wearing a mask. You'll be wearing it when it's necessary to wear a pair of gloves if you can afford it, to wash your hands, the 1 meter distancing. Now the best example is this morning I was at Vanathamulla, because I went to visit some of the sites where we were distributing dry ration, and we had only given coupons to a certain number of people because of the health regulations and according to what the PHIs had said. But the entire Vanathamulla was out there. They would never listen, so the police had to stop, and there is a huge racket and people protesting, saying that we didn't get. So everybody would get, because I have basically, I know the numbers, I know the people that I need, and everybody will get it, but they won't get it in one go. If Vanathamulla, if one particular ward has 4,000 odd people, all 4,000 may not get it in that one day or in
But
that.
what are the authorities doing to sort of give these people an assurance? Because these are legitimate concerns.
So this is not my responsibility, it's the responsibility of the government. But I am doing my bit as the mayor of Colombo. I am doing my bit through the council. We have our limitations, I must say. Basically, the charity commissioner, the charity department is working tirelessly. I have relief officers on the ground. So the relief officers, together with the divisional secretariats and the members of the council, we have 119 members. So in each ward you will find a ward member plus members from other parties. They work together. Here we haven't really basically looked at party politics or anything like that. We're only looking at how do we feed our ward members, how do we take care of their needs, what medication do we need to give them, what are the things that we could do to support them, apart from doing all the other development programs. Everybody is working in harmony. So my relief officers are on the ground, so I must actually talk about my charity division as well, where they're doing a great job. But I was not going to wait till the government gave them the 10,000 rupee dry ration or the 5,000 rupees that the government will do. But I think the immediate need was to feed these people, because some of them were really going through so much hardship, and they were so destitute that we needed to come forward.
Overall, could you give an assessment of how COVID has really impacted Colombo city alone? I mean, the economy we know has been suffering.
Hugely. I think more than me, maybe the economist and the high authorities, the central government, some of the ministers, the line ministers, which would basically the subject matter, the ministers that deal with the subject, could be able to tell you better. But I think it has affected Colombo hugely. And when you first asked me the question about how serious it is not just a health issue, it is very serious as far as the economy, and also with people's livelihoods and how they're going to cope in the next 3-4 months. It's not a matter of getting a packet of dry ration. How do they pay their rent? How do they pay their electricity bills, their water bills? How do they send their children to school? So it has affected practically every field, every, I would say, sphere of society and life. So economically, I think it's a huge. So this is probably why I understand why the president said, let's control COVID and open up and learn to live with it, because he had 3 options and he took the option of controlling COVID and opening up and living with it, because we closed up for 3 months and we saw the impact of that as far as economy was concerned. Small businesses had to go out of business, people lost their lives. So I suppose he didn't want to see that happening again, so he's asking the authorities to give him ways and means in how we could still control this, open up and live with it. And this is the I suppose, the new normal. So how do we go about with the new normal? Now say for an example, we've taken various measures, like working on e-platforms and e-commerce. We work from home, a lot of our, departments. We've digitized a lot of things, even a digital signature to put on, procurement. So e-procurement, practically, going back to e-platforms, even planning is on an e-platform right now, which we did 2 years ago, not realizing that we would have to face a pandemic. So there are ways with technologies has developed to a length where we could, innovate and think outside the box and start, working innovatively in the new normal. So, yeah.
Right. With that, we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mrs. Senayake, for your
Thank you,
time, and
Iswaran.
hope everything gets back to
Yes, I'm
a
hoping
better
and praying,
situation.
God willing. Yeah.
Thank you. And that's
Thank
all
you.
the time we have. Thank you for joining us.